mentioned the tape, the public, as well as the jury, has some strong opinion regarding the R. Kelly alleged sex tape, which the prosecution thought it was a slam dunk. Some people thought it was a turning point because of the alleged visual evidence. However, it was opposite of that. Why do you think it was opposite? What was the turning point that made it? You mentioned the graphic nature of moles, the blips on the videotape just a few minutes ago. What was that turning point?
Well, I'll tell you right now, a couple of things. One, there were problems with the tape. But most importantly, here is, they never brought in the alleged victim in the case. And she went to, I can say this now, she went to the grand jury and testified, that's not me on the tape. And then her mother went to testify, that's not her on the tape, that's not her. Then her father went to the test, that's not her on the tape. And the government never brought her in to say otherwise, or at least show the jury the girl on the tape versus the girl in person. Never did that. Now, how do you think about this now? Not just entertainment-wise, but in a court of law, our judicial system is based upon the premise that because the government has all of its resources and power behind it, they have to prove one of their citizens guilty beyond a reasonable doubt before you can take their freedoms away. How can you possibly have a young girl that you're saying is the victim of something as heinous as this and never bring her in for the jury to see? That's reprehensible. If you're truly trying to take freedom away from somebody, if you're really going to have them, and especially someone like R. Kelly, who's a known figure in the entertainment community, who has millions of dollars at stake, think about that. He could have lost millions upon millions of dollars in endorsement, and the government has a responsibility to prove its case. Yet they don't call the young girl in. I'm not here to denigrate real violence. I'm tired of real violence. I'm not here to denigrate sexual assault. I'm tired of seeing people sexually assaulted. These women out here need a voice for them. There's no question about it. But that's not what we were there for. We were there to determine whether or not the government could prove if Robert was the individual who did this to a particular young girl. Now that's what happened in the case. And the jurors came out and said it afterwards. See, what happened here is they brought in 18 or 19, right out here in Oak Park, witnesses that came in and said, I know her, and she was beautiful, and she was a lovely young girl, and for someone to do these things to her is terrible. And I started cross-examining each and every one of them. Not hard, but very, very, very softly. Tell me what you knew about her. And they went through and told her this is a lovely girl, wonderful girl, great girl. And then you see the tape, and that's a girl doing, if you watched it, that's a young girl doing some very adult, nasty thing that couldn't be the same. And then for the government not to come in and bring her in here and at least show them to her. At the end of the case, when I stood up in my closing argument, I stood right in the well of the jury room, of the audience, and I asked the jury, they're asking you to convict him of doing this to this individual. Now look in this audience. Is she here? Is she here? And if you don't know, because they didn't bother bringing her in, how can you convict a man of something as heinous as this? And the jury understood that. There's a responsibility.